Good morning or afternoon. It is time to do the read along. So we're going to start midway through our chapter because this is where we left off. Give me just a second to get to our full screen. All right, so where we last left off, Yannick and lots of other men had been kind of crammed into a cattle car. Remember, they were tight enough that he said it was so tight he couldn't even really lift his arm up. And they were going through the landscape and going through the towns, and the people that they drove by made absolutely no attempt to help them whatsoever. So, as we continue to go through here, we're going to keep reading and start right here where it says, "We did not arrive." We did not arrive at our destination that night, nor the entire next night, and still we had no food or water. I drifted in and out of sleep, that blessed escape from hunger. I would have collapsed from exhaustion if I hadn't been held up by the prisoners squeezed in around me. One morning or night, I couldn't tell which it was, I woke up to find the man next to me leaning heavily on my shoulder. I shook him to wake him up, but he wouldn't open his eyes. Something about the way he stood there, something about the way he moved, stiff and awkward, made my skin prickle. His flesh was gray like a Mussulman's, his lips cracked and frozen at the corners. Then I realized he wasn't breathing. The man leaning on me was dead. I squirmed and twisted, trying to push him away, but there was nowhere for either of us to go. The men near me roused from their sleep to grumble at me to be still, and I gave up. The dead man would be my companion until we got to wherever it was we were going. I worried I wouldn't be able to sleep again, knowing there was a corpse leaning on me, but soon the cold took me and I re-entered the half-awake world of the barely alive. I'm going to go back right here. The man leaning on me was dead. It's a small one, but we would definitely call this an aha moment. Yannick knows that the conditions on this train are bad, but waking up with this man literally dead next to him, but he's dead, but they are crammed so tight into this cattle car that he hasn't even fallen over. He's literally being held up by the people around him. Just goes to show how terrible these conditions are. And he also realizes that even though there's this dead man next to him, he really can't do anything about it. Okay? So Yannick realizes the true extent of the horrors of the way he is traveling. Okay. I woke again to an orange horizon. A sunrise, a sunset. My throat was cold and dry, my tongue like burlap. It had snowed while I was asleep, and the ventilation grate near me was covered with the stuff, grayish white from the engine's smoke. I tried to reach it with my tongue, to lick some of that precious frozen water off the grate, but it was just out of reach. My arms were pinned at my sides by the crush of the people in the car, but I wanted that snow. I needed that snow to survive. Slowly, painfully, I pulled my arm up between the dead man and the sleeping one beside us. The sleeper muttered in his sleep as I jostled him, and he pushed my hand back down without even waking. But I had to have that snow. I pushed again, and again the man pushed back. I elbowed him in his sunken stomach. He whimpered in his sleep and stopped fighting. My arm was free. I scooped snow from the grate. My thin fingers were so cold they were blue, but I didn't care. I shoved the snow into my mouth like a toddler eating cake. My throat was so dry I gagged on it, but I forced the melting snow down, ignoring the shocking pain in my teeth from the cold. It was water. Wonderful water. Not even a pastry at the corner bakery on Lewowska Street had ever tasted so good. With a pang, I remembered going there on Thursdays with my father, eating a treat and watching the pigeons in the park while my father read his newspaper. I pushed the memory away and reached for more gray snow. The orange horizon turned out to be a sunrise, which turned into a bright blue winter morning. Our train slowed again, this time not for a station. We were shunted to a sidetrack where another train of cattle cars passed us, going in the opposite direction. The other train slowed, then stopped alongside. "You there," someone called from across the way. "You there, in the other train." I squinted through the slats in the wall. There were people in the other train, packed in like us. We were all Jews being shipped around occupied Poland like coal or meat. What? A man a meter or two away from me answered. What does our train say? Where are we going? The man in the other train asked. I hadn't thought the trains would have our destination on them, but most trains did, I remembered. There were plates at the top that could be switched out for different destinations. I peered through the slats at the other car, trying to see. Treblinka, I called, seeing the placard at last. It says you're going to Treblinka. I didn't know the place. Where are we going? Birkenau, the man on the other train called. I had never heard of Birkenau either, but the words spread through the train in scared whispers. Birkenau, Birkenau, Birkenau. Now, the author does something right here where he actually says the words over and over again. So we would call this again and again. And an author does this when they really want to stress the importance of something. And the fact that it's saying Birkenau, Birkenau, and I like that he puts it in italics because it's being whispered. And it really shows just the fear that the single word gives. Just like when Mrs. Brown is really angry and she walks in and I hear all the kids go, it's Mrs. Brown, it's Mrs. Brown, it's Mrs. Brown. It's that scared moment. It's being repeated over and over again because there's this fear that going through the people in the cattle car, because wherever they're going, they're all concentration camps, but for some reason, Birkenau is going to instill more fear in them than any of the camps that they've been to before. Goes to show how scared of this particular camp the prisoners are. Okay. The other train rocked and started moving again, and soon we too were on our way. The man next to me, the live one, mumbled and shook his head. What is it? I asked. What's Birkenau? Another work camp? You don't go to Birkenau to work, the man said, his voice hoarse and dry. You go there to die. Birkenau isn't a concentration camp. It's a death camp. A chill ran through me. The boys at the depot had been right, I realized. They had known. The Nazis were going to kill us. They were going to turn us into soap. The train rocked back and forth, back and forth. Outside, it began to snow again. You want my advice? The man next to me rasped. When they take us to the gas chambers, try to stand right under the exhaust vents. Is that how you survive? The man laughed, or tried to. No, you won't survive. None of us will. But if you stand under the exhaust vents, you won't suffer as long before you die. All right, I'm going to stop here so I can do some shorter recordings. So we'll continue this here in just a minute.